All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome again to another one-stop business workshop. To our friends in Quebec who are joining us live, happy Saint Jean Baptiste, happy Fête Nationale. My name is Diana Chu. I'm a compliance officer at the Canadian Audiovisual Certification Office, more commonly known as CAVCO, and I'm your moderator today. We'd like to begin by acknowledging those Indigenous nations whose lands we live and work on. Since land acknowledgements are specific to each region, and we are gathering here today from all across Turtle Island, we encourage you to visit the Native Land digital website and identify the First Nations territories on which you are located. This session is being presented to you from the unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation, the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississauga of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat people, and from the ancestral lands of the Gabrielin, Tongva, the Tataviam, and the Chumash. Today, we'll be chatting with Tonya Williams and Nikki Davis, who will be sharing with us their insights on hiring talent from underrepresented groups in the industry, and also tips on how you can get hired. Tonya is an award-winning actress and the founder and executive director of Reelworld Screen Institute and Reelworld Film Festival, which is now celebrating its 20th year. During her 40-plus years in the entertainment industry, she has passionately advocated for Canadian Black, Indigenous, and people of color, BIPOC talent in all areas of the industry. Nikki has worked in radio, television, and print for 33 years. He has won many awards for his journalism, including a 2006 Gabriel Award. For the past 23 years, he has worked at the CBC as a reporter, manager of program development, and senior producer of Toronto's #1 morning show, Metro Morning on CBC Radio 1, and is currently the director of engagement and inclusion at the CBC. Today's session is a little different from other one-stop business workshops. There is no presentation per se, but we will be providing some information after the session that will cover some of the main points discussed here. There is still going to be a question and answers period. Basically, the entire 30-minute session is a Q&A session. I will begin with some questions that were provided during the registration. You can also email me your questions at any time during the session. My email address is on your e-bite for the session. That part hasn't changed. So with that, let's begin. Here are your presenters. So let's start with this question. What advice do you have for producers and content creators for hiring and working with talent from underrepresented or BIPOC communities? Tonya, I'll get you to answer first, and then Nikki, you can add your thoughts afterwards.
Oh, this is wonderful. Thank you so much, and really happy to be a part of this discussion in particular. Some of the advice that I tend to either give or hope that the companies take is to post everywhere. And when I say post everywhere, they tend to have their traditional places that they post. And those traditional places are not always where BIPOC talent is. And so I think they need to be much more proactive, much more aggressive about looking for where the best avenues are to find the communities that do represent. So that could go from community centers, it could go to film festivals, which have a lot of people in the industry there. It's going to have to be a sort of a creative, but there are so many organizations and online organizations now that focus on BIPOC talent. I think, I know we've never been contacted, maybe once in like 20 years, to say, here is a job posting, can you put it up? So we haven't been getting that. Also consider creating more paid internships, shadowing and co-op opportunities. By creating those, you may be able to then see and work with talent that you could remind yourself for the future. Visit universities, visit colleges, visit film schools, and try and find who are BIPOC people there and training. You have to build relationships with people in the communities that you are trying to access. So if you have no connection to those communities, it's very hard then for you to think that you can hire from those communities. And then board of directors. A lot of organizations do not have people of color, do not have BIPOC people on their board of directors. And board of directors are key to their network of who they know. So, and lastly, as a self plug, on July 6th, we're launching Access Reelworld, which will be an across Canada access where you can, all BIPOC people in the entertainment industry on every level should be signing up for, and you can also post jobs there. So that was a shameless plug.
Hi everybody, and I'm happy to be here as well. And I want to build on a couple of things that Tonya said. First, in terms about the board of director thing, that's a very important point about having diverse boards of directors, but I also think it's important that for those companies who are looking to hire, that they actually have diverse managers. And you should actually think about your management team and what do they look like, because the more diverse that team is, the more access you probably have to BIPOC communities, just by the sheer nature of who's working in your organization. About job postings, Tanya's right, like they should be job postings, but those job postings to me should be very specific. Like, what are you actually looking for? And don't be afraid to say in your job posting that you're trying to diversify the people who work in on your whatever it is, your production or your industry or your office or whatever. Don't be afraid to say that. And then be careful about the channels you choose. I mean, Tanya's right. Like, there's people tend to go to the same places they go to all the time, and they don't think about expanding those channels. But the challenge with extending those channels or choosing different channels is that you actually don't have people who can give you access to those channels. So you need to actually widen your net of people who you actually engage with on a regular basis. I would suggest you take a look at your phone and go through it and see, well, how many people of color or BIPOC people actually reside in that space. And are we making sure that we're actually opening our doors to people for the right reasons and not for the wrong reasons? And when I say that, I'm talking about people who rush to hire people because they, I got to hire a Black person now because there's all this talk about anti-Black racism. And then in doing so, they don't actually find, maybe the right fit or the best person for that position because they're trying to do it. So they're not doing it for the right reason. So then the sustainability for that person in the field is actually reduced because they may not be the right person. It might be a situation where they're set up to fail. And so I just think you'll be less in a rush if you already have the other things in place, like a diverse board or a diverse manager, because you'll already have access to all the talent you need to access. Plus, the organizations you already deal with, like the Writers Guild and the Directors Guild, they have their own databases, and you can just say, hey, I'm actually looking for a Black director, I'm looking for a Black writer for a writing room. And you can actually be very specific about what you ask from them as well, as opposed to just, I'm looking for a writer for a show. You can actually be very deliberate about it. And I'll just add a couple of things for the people who are looking for work. There's a whole bunch of things, and I'm sure Tonya will get into some of it soon, around if you're a BIPOC person looking to get into the industry as opposed to someone looking to hire BIPOC. I would say one of the things that you really should do is, I know it sounds so simple because everyone's like, oh, well, you got to network and meet the right people. But the challenges that people face is, how do I get access to these places where I can actually network people? Like how do I even know about these things? Like, how do I know where to go and what to do? And so the thing is you have to make connections with the existing bodies that you already have as well, that you're around, and make sure that you're telling people, I'm looking for this, I'm looking for work, and making sure that you're expanding your own network as well. And it's not easy, and I won't pretend it's easy. And I do think we live in an industry that we know has tons of systemic barriers. There's systemic racism inherent in a lot of the systems that we work in. And so I know those are some of the barriers you face, and hopefully later on we can talk about some of those barriers and how to deal with them.
Yeah. In terms of the hiring piece, absolutely right. Yeah, there's a lot of doors that are closed to a lot of people of color, and a lot of information that the people of color don't have access to. But here's what I think you could be doing that you can at least feel empowered about. First of all, make sure your CV is up to date. Always have it polished and ready to go. You don't know when anyone's going to ask you, and post it everywhere you can find a place to post. Broaden your own skill sets. I know you might want to do something very specific in the industry, but I find the people that work the most are people that can do 4 or 5 or 6 different things on a set, in a production, in an office. So the more you can broaden those skill sets and explore alternative trades within the industry, I think that's helpful too. Join all the organizations you can. Some you have to pay for, some are free. But organizations, unions, affiliations, make it easier for people to find you. And some of that social media, a lot of these organizations have groups, so join them, so you can at least hear when they're posting things through that. Attend industry events, Screen Awards, the DGC Awards, go to film festivals, make sure people know you're out there. Don't expect someone's going to come knocking on your door to offer you a job, and you have to build relationships. And building a relationship is not the same as bothering someone every day or every week. You may be bothering someone once a year. Just staying on their radar, I feel once a year is enough. Join BIPOC industry community. So as I said, There are a lot of those BIPOC communities and organizations and platforms out there, but you have to join them. They can't put your name on things if you're not there. Work together. BIPOC people should work together. So if you hear of a job, get that out to other people within your community as well. Be supportive to your peers and refer to other BIPOC people when you can. Maybe you already have a job, but you've heard of it. So pass that around. So sharing knowledge, networking, these are powerful ways to find new opportunities.
I just want to add a couple of things to that too. Is and one of my colleagues at work told me this just relatively a short time ago about finding mentors. Like, find a mentor in the field who can actually help you navigate the market. Someone's already been through it. There's lots of Tonya Williams in the world who are happy to give you advice and happy to help you navigate the system. There's just lots of them, and I think you need to reach out to those people. And I know the people like Tonya and are actually very happy to help BIPOC people find their place in this industry. So find a mentor and someone who can help you. And please don't ever sell yourself short. Like, I mean, I know some of these things are free and sometimes we take, when I was a freelance writer back in the early 90s, I did a lot of free writing just to get my name out there. And I will tell you, when I look back at it, I might have done it differently, because I think you have to value yourself and your work, and don't sell yourself short. Like, so if you're doing, let's say you are doing an internship and it's free. Okay, maybe for the first couple of weeks, it's something you might want to do just to get your foot in the door, meet some people. But if they're still not paying you after a month, it's time to go get another experience, because it's just not worth it. Now they're just taking advantage of you as opposed to you taking advantage of the system. And I just think people need to value themselves and really.
I feel a little differently on that, only because if you're doing something free, but you are getting the access to what you need, like you're getting something out of it, then I stay. It doesn't matter how long you stay there. But if you're doing something and you just feel, I'm in the basement working night and day, I'm not making any contacts, I'm not meeting any people, then that's probably not the right internship for you. But I can tell you, they are definitely, someone just emailed me, recently, if someone called you up and say, you have an internship with a major producer from Netflix or a major admin person from Netflix, if they wanted me for a year for free, I would be there, because that kind of platform, you can meet so many people that are going to launch your career. So you're going to have to pick and choose. The one thing about the entertainment industry, as it's probably every industry, but I'll say it is, the people who are not that bright, they're not going to succeed. It's not that kind of industry. And it's all about your ingenuity. It's about how sharp, how smart, and how you can leverage every relationship that you meet, every opportunity you have. You can't sit back and wonder, how is someone else going to leverage this for me? You have to be figuring out strategically all the time, how is this helping me?
That's amazing. Sorry, Nikki, did you want to say something else? Or because you guys, that was one question, but I felt like you guys answered like 5 questions, and that's I didn't want to interrupt. That was so great. Well, we have a question here about the nonprofit community. Do you have any perspective you can share for the nonprofit community and how they can find ways to better engage with underrepresented members of their community to create and distribute content?
Nikki, do you want to do that one, or?
I think you should start, because I have my thoughts, but I'm going to talk about the CBC specifically. And although we're not a nonprofit per se, but we tend to operate that way sometimes. So, but I think you should start.
Well, as a person who's running a nonprofit organization, I can tell you it's challenging. I mean, even 20 years in, year 1 and 2 it's hard to find the communities. I'm always shocked 20 years later when people go, oh, when is the festival? They asked me this in November, and the festival was in October. I'm like, they're like, oh, nobody called us, or nobody emailed us, or nobody told us. And I'm like, oh my God. I mean, I can't imagine, because I live in Los Angeles, I can't imagine anyone here going, oh, you should have told me about this, because this is a highly competitive industry. If you want to know of something, that's your job. Your job is to figure out, every December I sit down, this is what I use my December for. My New Year's Eve, as I stay home, I'm strategizing my year. I'm figuring out the events. I've researched. I know when Cannes is. I know when TIFF is going to happen. I know when different award shows are happening. I lay it all out in my calendar. And then I highlight what I might be able to attend. And even if I'm not attending something, I'm following up. What happened there? Who were the winners there? Like, I'm in a constant state of work because I believe that's how you get ahead in this industry. I mean, it's just no other way. So how do you engage as a nonprofit? We are constantly putting things out on our social media. We put things out on our website. We have a newsletter. But honestly, if people don't want to sign up, if they don't want to check the things, we're not going to knock on their door. So it can get challenging.
From the CBC perspective, because I mean, even though we're, I don't know, I wouldn't say we're a nonprofit, but sometimes we operate that way. We have the same challenges that I think Tonya has. It's around communicating what it is we do and how we do it and when we do it. So we have this wonderful website that has all the information about where you can go. And I mean, you'll get some of that in our notes after the end. But really, there's like, people tell us, well, why don't you guys have this type of program? And I said, well, we already do. Oh, you do? Yeah, well, I know somehow we haven't done a good job to me of communicating that to people. Like somehow we have not. So part of the challenge for us is that we also too, as a public broadcaster, we have to think about where are our gaps in terms of our communication. Who are we not connecting with? Who's not aware of what it is we're doing? Who are we aware of what we need to be doing more of? Like those kinds of questions need to be asked. And like we don't have a bottomless pit of money to do it. So we have to make real choices around how we're going to spend that money and what we're going to spend it on. And so to me, that's our part of our failure. And that's some of the challenges we face as a corporation is actually getting the word out. I just talked to somebody earlier today who was, I guess, not happy with our youth programming and that we don't have enough of it on TV. Well, I'm like, I didn't even know what to say because like we have an award-winning webpage for young people. We have a couple of podcasts that are distinctly aimed at young people. One that won a massive international award for being one of the best podcasts in the world. We have CBC Kids Television. Like we have things, but this person was not aware of it. And when I told this person that, they're like, oh, well, why don't you guys tell people about it? Well, you're right.
Yeah,
we need to do a better job.
That's very frustrating. The information is there many times, but people will be lazy and they want it to arrive in their mailbox, but you have to search for it. But a lot of the information that people are always emailing Reelworld and saying, oh, you should do this. And we're like, we do that. Do you ever look at our website? Did you go through the pages? I mean, it's on there. You have to take the time and actually look through the pages. But I think before people complain, they should actually, I think the research is the hardest part of our industry. I spend 80% of my time researching, and I don't just research Canada, I'm researching the country, the world. I'm looking at Denmark. I'm looking to see what kind of BIPOC industry things that they have. You have to search, you have to know the whole picture so that you can understand your piece. But if you're just so self-absorbed and as to where is my job, where is my thing, I mean, it gets myopic and you actually you need to stretch and open and get yourself informed. I talk to a lot of people who are saying, I want to know more about this in the industry and that in the industry. I go, do you read any of the trade papers? Like, do you read playback? They don't even know what playback is. Like, I can't take someone really seriously when you actually are telling me you've never heard of the Screen Awards. You've never heard of playback. How do I then take you seriously?
It is pretty tough. I mean, I guess it's like you as an organization, you put in the work, but then the person looking for that information needs to put in the work to find that information because we just have so much information. Yeah. I have to say that.
Can I say one thing, Diana, too, around that? But part of the responsibility, yes, there's a responsibility on the person to find the information, but there's a responsibility on us as well. And I will say, I can speak for us at CBC, we need to do a better job of communicating the things that we're doing as well. Like, I mean, we can't just expect people to know where to look. So you can go on our website right now and all the information is there. I would say it's not the easiest website in the world to navigate, to find the information. So we're going to provide you like direct links to what you need to have for today. So it's good, but normally it's not that simple.
And Reelworld has even way less resources than
absolutely.
So any of you out there that would like to volunteer and help an organization that could help you, sign up at Reelworld and help us, because we have like 4 people trying to do everything that you're saying that you want access to, but there's only so many hours in the day and only so much we can do.
I would also add, maybe if you have a mailing list, you sort of like leverage the people who already support you to try to get the word out. I only found out recently that there was like a Vancouver Asian Film Festival. I used to live in Vancouver like a decade ago, and then went to visit last November. At the same time, there was a Vancouver Asian Film Festival. My Vancouver friends who are Asian didn't know about there was a Vancouver Asian Film Festival. I was like, we're gonna go check out some things. So I mean, like sometimes, I mean, it's only, I only added like 3 people to the festival or whatever, but sometimes it's like a little bit of the grassroots and getting the word out that way. I also found out recently there's a Mosaic Festival in Halifax, so anybody wants to check out like another festival here in Halifax, they just, I think it's their second film festival this year, hoping everything goes well with COVID. So word of mouth.
About that, what you just said, Diane, on that, there are over 120 film festivals just in Toronto alone, just in Toronto. If you don't know what those 120 are, that's at least the beginning of your research, because those are the networking events you should be at.
All right, so we'll move on to the next question. This one is Tonya, I'm going to bring this one put this one to you. How do I point out that my experience and point of view as a woman of color is valuable and enriching without tokenizing myself? That's a very interesting question.
You're never going to be able to navigate around it not coming off as tokenism. So you're going to be speaking to a group of people that already have a preconceived idea about who you are as a Black woman. They have a preconceived idea. So whatever you say sounds like you're arguing or overreacting or overly sensitive, or so I have to just let that go. I don't let that worry me. I can't be concerned with how other people are taking it. I'm direct, you know, I say what I'm feeling. I am as authentic as I can be, and other people might take offense to that, but I really can't spend time worrying about that. So I think you just have to continue to be honest, put your voice out there, and people may not take, I throw out ideas all the time. Let me tell you, I'm on groups and committees where they ask me for my opinions and I give them and they say, oh, that's nice, we won't use them. That happens 90% of the time. I can't take it personally. You just keep throwing out what you're suggesting, and one day someone, and it's happened to me, it's rare, someone actually hears you and takes the information and finds it valuable. But don't stop, just keep putting yourself out there, and don't worry about whether you come across as it's tokenism or it's limited. It's who you are, and you're just representing who you are. Don't be proud of that and be really confident about that.
That's great. I love that. Thank you, Tonya. Nikki,
as a black woman, what do you think?
I have some thoughts, but I'll save them.
Well, this will be your chance now, but we also have a lot of questions. I could jump into. I'll jump into the next one. This one, Nikki, actually, yeah, like this. This question is asking, what are some best practices in hiring consultants or writer when writing a comedy series that includes people of color?
Hire some Black people in the writing room. That'd be helpful. People of color in the writing room, that's always a good first choice. I also think though, I mean, it's funny because I wrote a screenplay back in the late 1990s for a sitcom. I wrote one for a pilot for a sitcom in Canada. Me and a couple of friends of mine. And they eventually bought the pilot, they pitched their show, they got their show, and then we watched the first episode on TV, and we asked them to take our names off of it. Like, we don't want our names on it, because it was so not a representation of what we wrote. And so when you're writing sitcoms, and you got to be true to the characters. Like, so if you're writing sitcoms and you have people of color in those sitcoms, I think we're in a world right now today where people expect authenticity of characters. I think the way you can get that authenticity is actually talk to the people playing the roles. They probably know the characters better than maybe whoever created it if it wasn't created by a person of color. And I think you need to take your lead from some of those people. You have to give them room, because the last thing you want to do is have, well, maybe that's your intention, but hopefully it's not, is to have stereotypical characters and people who are just caricatures of themselves. And so I just think that you have to be careful in terms of how you're representing people from diverse communities. And if you have people from diverse communities in your program, or people, BIPOC people on your shows, let them guide some of the decisions and choices around how you represent and reflect those characters.
But here's another part of that too, that a lot of times when you're hired as a person of color, I'll just say Black because I'm Black, so as a Black person, just because I say something and that is my, like, I'm not speaking for every single Black person ever. So if I'm writing a character, I hate that feeling like I need to be representing there is no one Black woman. There is no one type of a person of color. So people who are white out there, you need to understand, because you bring someone of color on, they are not the poster of like all that race. And I think there's a lot of pressure on writers that just because they're writing their authentic experience doesn't mean that another person of that same color had any experience like that whatsoever. So I think there also needs to be sort of an awareness and sensitivity around that. You are getting that one writer. You are not getting a writer with a Black voice. So don't think in that way, or an Asian writer with an Asian voice. You don't hire one white writer to write every white character that exists on your show, because that doesn't really make any sense. So think about that. And I hate the responsibility as a Black person that everything I do, people might look at it and go, oh yeah, that's representative of how all Black women think. You know, it's annoying.
Mm-hmm. Would the solution be be like hire more than just one Black writer, right? Hire multiple Black writers.
Wow,
And get
that would be so wow. Mind blowing.
But that's why it's so important that there is more diversity on these teams and in these programs, so you do get different perspectives and different views. And Tonya's right. Like BIPOC communities are monolith communities. We don't all think the same way and act the same way, and that's why that's why I'd rather the perception of what a character might be in a show at least come from the perspective of the person who's playing the character, as opposed to someone who has no understanding of what the experiences of those people are. Like the question around the woman around how do you take your own lived experiences and not be seen as a token, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's almost the same situation here. Like, we don't want the person who's writing it to feel like, well, I have to represent all Black people or all whatever, or all people of color. But I do want that perspective, because whatever perspective they bring, and Tonya's right, the acknowledgement has to come from the production company, whoever's making the show, that this is actually just one perspective of many different perspectives that rest with it.
Yeah. I'll tell you one quick story that was so offensive to me. Was I was on a show, and I'm playing a professional. So to me, if you're playing a professional, it's a little bit different than if I were playing a domestic. You know, it's a different kind of role. So in this role, in the script, it felt funny. And when I talked to the white writer, she totally chastised me. She went, "This is authentic. I have a Black maid, and I got a lot of info from her of how Black people are." And I was like, oh my God, where do you start with the conversation? I don't even know where you start in that conversation, because I just was stumped into.
No, you start the conversation.
It's just weird. People can be weird.
We are running short on time, so I'm just going to try to fit in a few quick questions, hopefully. As a BIPOC, should I send emails that state my racial identity when I send cold emails?
Yes.
Yes.
100%.
Yes. Okay. That was a quick one.
It's never been a better time. Never been a better time to be a person of color. Why would you hide it? Tell them.
Don't hide yourself. Show up. Okay, and then so we're talking about maybe this is actually a good way to end it. We talked about hiring talent, but then keeping them is another thing, retention and things like that. So what advice do you have for BIPOC professionals and media companies about how to hold on to top talent before they leave? And what constructive questions and lessons should be explored when BIPOC talent decide to leave that could help our industry do better? And you have 1 minute each to answer that.
I'll go first on the first thing I would say is that treat people with respect. Like, treat people who come onto your sets and onto your programs or into your companies, treat them with the respect they deserve. If you treat people well and treat them good, and people have a good experience with your production company, they will always speak highly of your production company, and they're more likely to come back and do more work with you. But if they have a bad experience, then they're going to tell someone else, don't work with those people. I had a terrible time with them. And then they're going to also look for other opportunities as well.
And my quick answer would be, that's a very Canadian answer, because whether people treat you good or not or whatever should not matter. That's my theory. The theory is, what are you getting out of the job? So if you are, one, you're getting paid well. If you're not getting paid well, you're not going to be retained. Two, is there room for advancement? Do you want to move up in the company? But I can tell you from a perspective of Hollywood, all companies, it's competitive, it's hard. Someone marking on a box that they weren't treated well at CBS or Columbia or Sony Pictures or Burbank Studio, that would get you laughed out of town. Like, you just need to do your job, but you won't stay at a job if you're not seeing the progression. I can guarantee you people get paid so poorly in Canada. So let's start with that. I mean, if you were getting paid so well, you'd put up with a lot of shit, you know, because that's part of your job. You're supposed to turn up, you're supposed to be professional, you're supposed to deliver. And if it's so unbearable, I'm not talking about abuse where someone's physically shaking and slapping you or locking you up or whatever. But I'm saying if someone's curt or brisk or does not want to hear your story about, you know, what your problem was personally, and they don't want to hear it, those are not reasons to put down a company. But I find that in Canada, it does. You know, God forbid that you should not have the right coffee, or that you told people to be quiet in the office. All of a sudden, you're like the pariah. You know, you're an awful company to work for.
Well, I wasn't being that trivial. I really mean I have to have a good experience in that place. I don't care how well I'm getting paid. If I'm not enjoying where I am, I'm not coming back. I don't care. Again, that's not a Canadian thing. That's a respect and treating people with respect thing for me. And I think
if you pay me enough, I don't care.
I know, but I have to care. Like I have to.
I'm saying that's me, and but it goes to show retention is not one kind. You have to find out what's important to that person that you're hiring, and not assume that there's one thing important to everybody.
Right.
I guess companies, companies themselves need to step up as well too, I guess, right? Like, I mean, I'm seeing a lot of news on things on Twitter where people who work from certain media companies are all stepping up to say how badly they were mistreated. I mean, those voices are important in terms of like making change happen, I'd imagine, to
but even as I watch some of those, some are really serious, and I'm like, wow, that should be addressed. And some I'm like, oh, really? Come on. You know, I mean, I'm also reading ones where I'm like, you're literally complaining about everything, like every nuance of everything. So once you open that platform, you're going to get different things.
All right. So we talked about hiring. We talked about retention. We talked about a lot of things to think about. I think we are out of time, unfortunately, because I could go on with the subject. It's so interesting. Thank you so much, Tonya and Nikki.
I thought this was a 2-hour session.
I know. Good. In control room, do we have another hour and a half? So anyways, thank you both of you for sharing your valuable insights. I really appreciate it. I hope you guys at home or wherever you're watching this from found this really useful. Once again, we will be providing some follow-up resources at the end of the session on the CBC Business and Rights website. And also remember that these one-stop business workshop sessions are being held each weekday afternoon at 2 p.m. Eastern Time until July 3rd. Tomorrow's topic is how do I work with a broadcaster, and will include representatives from the APTN, Blue Ant Media, and TVO, and moderated by CBC's Executive Director on OTT Programming, Gabe Lindo. So you should definitely tune in tomorrow. Oh, and also you can also, during the meantime, you can connect with other people from the session on a Facebook group called One Stop Business networking group that's just newly created for people who register for a session who want to connect with one another. It's not moderated or anything like that, but if you want to see who else, if you want to share tips or information, by all means, that's a place to go. Anyways, that's it from me. That's it from all of us. Thanks again, everybody, and have a great day. Bye.
Bye, Tonya. Bye, Diana.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Now this is the yes. That was so interesting. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Diana. That was wonderful. Now everybody knows not to work for me.
Or they'll learn a lot working from you. We have 4 employees. That's doing a lot of work.